Welcome to Hope and Love in Stockwell. It's very lovely to see you. Oh, and many of us have been at home more than usual, haven't we? We have worked a little bit less and maybe have a little bit more time to reflect. The future might appear a little bit uncertain at the moment. But right here and right now, we have, of course, the opportunity to look back and reflect on uplifting stories and places and people and legacies in the place that we're living in Stockwell, our own neighborhood. This visual stroll is created by a collective called Draw Lambeth. And it will mix prose and facts and poetry and history, and it intends to inspire hope and love. We want to make a very special thank you to Ludlow Thompson that has supported the St. Michael's Arts Festival. Without your support, this would not be possible. So thank you very much. Now I'd like to introduce you to the people who will take you through this stroll. And that is Naomi. And there is Naomi and Roli. There we go. So Roli is an actor who lives locally, and she will recite the prose, and she will also read quotes in this presentation. So hello, Roli. There she is. And I'm going to introduce you to Naomi Clifford, who is a historical writer and broadcaster. She will narrate the historical part of this presentation. So welcome all. I think we can start our stroll in Stockwell.
So we're starting at the centre of Stockwell with an artwork that has brought visitors from across the globe. It is, of course, the Bronze Woman, as you can see. So in 1994, the Guyanese poet and activist Cecile Nobrega, who you can see here, who lived in Stockwell, campaigned for a physical representation of women of colour because she believed they were not adequately recognised in society. And she also wanted to remember the enslaved people and their descendants. Her poem, The Bronze Woman, celebrates and remembers their resilience and strength and their essence as nurturers and carers. Now, 10 years, she started a campaign to get this sculpture made. And 10 years after she started it, work began. So it took 10 years. And she worked with the sculptor Ian Walters, and he made the figure of Nelson Mandela in Parliament Square, which you might be familiar with. And he started by designing a maquette, which is a word for the initial model of a sculpture. And Roli went to see the maquette, which is in St. Michael's Church last week. Now, sadly, Walters died in 2005, and the artist Alex Barbat completed the statue, which is over 10 feet tall, so over 3 meters. It was unveiled in 2008 on the 200th anniversary of the end of the slave trade, which sadly was not the end of the practice of slavery. It was the first public statue of a woman of colour in the UK, and words from Nobrega's poem, Bronze Woman, the poem that started it all, are engraved on the plinth and are read for you now by Roli.
Find me a place in the sun, in the sea, on a rock, near an isle, in the Caribbean. There I will set her free, honoured, free.
Now, the bronze woman statue set us on a train of thought about another bronze statue of another Black woman, Phyllis Wheatley, one of the best known poets of the 18th and 19th centuries. She was born in Senegal, or possibly the Gambia in West Africa, and at the age of around 7 was kidnapped to be enslaved. She landed in Boston, Massachusetts in 1761 and remained there, working as an enslaved person in the household of John Wheatley, because they didn't sell her on because she seemed too frail. They thought she might die early. Unusually, the Wheatleys educated Phyllis with their own children, but she also had to do her domestic duties. She started writing extraordinary poems at an early age, and the Wheatleys recognized that they had a genius in their household. No one in Boston would publish her work, the work of an enslaved person, so the Wheatleys decided to take her to London, where she met an array of dignitaries. These included William Legge, the Earl of Dartmouth, who was the patron of the abolitionist cause. And Roli will now read a verse of Phyllis's poem addressed to William Legge, while we look on this bronze statue erected to Wheatley in Boston.
Should you, my lord, while you peruse my song, wonder from whence my love of freedom sprung, whence flow these wishes for thy common good, by feeling hearts alone best understood, I, young in life, by seeming cruel fate was snatched from Africa's fancy happy seat. What pangs excruciating must molest, what sorrows labor in my parents' breast. Steeled was that soul, and by no misery moved, that from a father seized his babe beloved. Such my case, and can I then but pray others may never feel tyrannical sway?
A somber end, but one looking forward perhaps to the end of the system that caused Phyllis so much pain. From the statue, we travel on to our next destination, heading north, crossing Clapham Road, following the road round to the back of Durand Gardens and ending at Hackford Road. No surprise to you, I'm sure, that we are now gathered outside 87 Hackford Road, the house where Van Gogh lodged for about 10 months in 1873 to 1874. The house continues Van Gogh's legacy by hosting artist residencies in addition to guided tours, exhibitions, and events. And now Vincent Van Gogh and his brother Theo both began their careers at an international art firm. Vincent was transferred to London in June 1873, and he began lodging with Mrs. Lawyer at number 87. And he made this sketch of the street here. Soon after he arrived, he fell into a sort of obsessive love with one of Mrs. Lawyer's daughters. She rejected him as she already had a secret sweetheart, but also because he was just a little bit too intense. Now, this is Vincent on the left at the age of 19, just before he came to London, and next to him is his brother Theo. While Vincent was living in Hackford Road, he showed signs of the mania that marked his life, but the frequent letters he and Theo exchanged were a huge support. Roli walked through Van Gogh Walk, which is almost opposite the house, last week. And this short stretch of street features plantings inspired by Van Gogh's paintings. There are cypress and olive trees, grasses and colourful shrubs. And it's a really wonderful human scale haven of greenery, recreation and places to rest. Roli will now read a quote from one of Van Gogh's letters in which he talks about the area.
I walk here as much as I can. It's absolutely beautiful, even though it's in the city. There are lilacs and hawthorns and laburnums blossoming in all the gardens, and the chestnut trees are magnificent. If one truly loves nature, one finds beauty everywhere.
There are, of course, other remembrances of Van Gogh in Stockwell. The school opposite in Hatford Road is now named after him. And there's also the community vegan cafe based in Christchurch on Brixton Road. When we were planning this walk and exploring the traces of Van Gogh in Stockwell, we started to reflect on the importance of that bond between Vincent and Theo. And the strength of the bond between siblings generally. And Roli will now read 3 verses from Elizabeth Barrett Browning's poem, Verses to My Brother, written for her favourite brother, Edward, and she had 8 of them, so she chose him as her favourite.
I will write down thy name, and when 'tis writ, will turn me from the hum that mortals keep in the wide world without, and gaze on it. It telleth of the past, calling from sleep, such dear, yet mournful thoughts as make us smile and weep. Beloved and best, what 1,000 feelings start, as over the paper's course my fingers move. My brother, dearest, kindest as thou art, how can these lips my heart's affection prove? I could not speak the words if words could speak my love. Together have we passed our infant hours, together sported childhood's spring away, together culled young hope's fast budding flowers to wreath the forehead of each coming day. Yes, for the present sun makes even the future gay.
From brotherly love to the kindness and hope that a pioneering doctor brought to Stockwell. We now recross Clapham Road and head south. We take a right down Jeffreys Road and reach a place fated across the world for the good work that happened there. The improvements Annie McCall made in maternity care in the late 19th century and early 20th saved the lives of thousands of London women and babies, and indeed across the world, as her students took her ideas home with them and used them there. Here she is as a young woman when she was training to be a doctor. She was born in 1859 in Manchester and went on to medical school in Paris, London, Dublin and Bern. Annie McCall was among the first 50 women to qualify as a doctor in Britain. When she settled in Stockwell, she ran outpatients clinics for poor women and was soon deeply concerned about the high death rate of mothers during and after childbirth, convinced she could improve things. Her success attracted donors, and in 1913, work started on this building, the Clapham Maternity Hospital, as it was called then, in Jeffreys Road. It had 12 wards and offered 50 inpatients, clean surroundings, a good diet, fresh air, and, very important, time away from their families. Unusually for the time, McCall took unmarried women without flinching. All her medical staff and students were women, and this woman-centred, woman-led approach contributed to huge success in bringing down the death rate. Now, the building took a bomb in 1940, but it survived at least until 1970 when it was closed down. The rather splendid structure fell into neglect. You might remember it in more recent times as the home of Stockwell Studios, and it was taken over eventually by developers. But there is still a studio space in the back of the building. McCall lived at 165 Clapham Road, and she sometimes used her own home for teaching, as Alice Wilkinson, one of her students, remembered.
Our lectures were not at all in the hospital. I remember one occasion when the garden at Clapham Road was our lecture place. We sat near a mulberry tree with the mulberries ripening and falling all around us. We were invited to gather them when the lecture was finished. We did it with much joy, and I'm sure this and other such things made our learning easy.
Now, McCall, or Doctor, as she was known by her staff, was very much loved as a kind of benevolent dictator. She looked severe, but she was not without a sense of humour, and she was very kind and self-effacing in her way. Now, these are the staff in 1915 at Jeffreys Road in Christmas fancy dress, and I think that shows the more playful side of her. And I can't identify Annie McCall in any of these women, but I think perhaps she was behind the Father Christmas mask in the centre. Now, one of her staff remembered her in 1948, a year before the doctor died.
In times of rare leisure, Doctor would gather us round the fire to read, or she would tell us of her early days and what led up to the founding of the hospital. How thoughtful Doctor was for us. After a busy night, she would bring round tea and laughingly say, "It's just to see how many cups I can carry." It is all long ago, but the uplift of those days has never faded. It has gone on through the years.
The achievements of Annie McCall and her thousands of students and staff in improving the lives of mothers and babies was extraordinary. McCall never had children of her own, but she brought many into the world, and that love for other people's children is also seen in this next poem by Anna Letitia Barbauld, called "To a Little Invisible Being Who is Expected Soon to Become Visible," published in 1773, in which she looks forward optimistically to her friend's baby.
Germ of new life, whose powers expanding slow for many a moon their full perfection wait. Haste, precious pledge of happy love, to go auspicious born through life's mysterious gate. What powers lie folded in thy curious frame, senses from objects locked and mind from thought. How little canst thou guess thy lofty claim to grasp at all the worlds the Almighty wrought. And see, the genial season's warmth to share, fresh younglings shoots, and opening roses glow, swarms of new life exulting fill the air. Haste, infant bud of being, haste to blow. For thee, the nurse prepares her lulling songs, the eager matron counts the lingering day, but far the most thy anxious parent longs on thy soft cheek a mother's kiss to lay. She only asks to lay her burden down, that her glad arms that burden may resume, and nature's sharpest pangs her wishes crown, that free thee living from thy living tomb. She longs to fold to her maternal breast part of herself, yet to herself unknown, to see and to salute the stranger guest, fed with her life through many a tedious noon. Come, reap thy rich inheritance of love. Bask in the fondness of a mother's eye. Nor wit nor elegance her heart shall move, like the first accents of thy feeble cry. Haste, little captive, burst thy prison doors, launch on the living world and spring to light. Nature for thee displays her various stores, opens her thousand inlets of delight. If charmed verse or muttered prayers had power, with favouring spells to speed thee on their way, anxious I'd bid my beads each passing hour, till thy wished smile thy mother's pangs overpay.
With that, we'll now walk north, passing the tube station, the War Memorial and the Bronze Woman, and head down South Lambeth Road, taking a left at Lansdowne Way. Ironically, our final stop is place of travel, but of course, traveling also often entails traveling back home. Like a bus route, perhaps, our lives are circular. And we've arrived, to no one's great surprise, at Stockwell Bus Garage. Now, the garage was built in 1952 on land that had been bombed during the war. The building is made of reinforced concrete rather than the more usual steel girders, because there was a post-war shortage of steel, so much rebuilding was going on. It's now a Grade 2 listed building. The 20th Century Society said that Stockwell Bus Garage is one of the finest examples of post-war modernist architecture, and also described it like this: the cantilevered barrel vaults have skylights running the full width of the garage, which together with the windows in the side walls and wide entrances, bathes the interior with natural light. Seen from above, this gives the impression of a line of dolphins diving in unison. At street level, the outward-leaning buttresses appear to effortlessly support the curved roof. Now, I found this wonderful photograph on Flickr, and I think it is perfectly captures that those diving dolphins. Now, in 2011, Stockwell's foremost intellectual, Will Self, was asked by the Royal Academy to discuss his favourite building, his London building. This turned out to be Stockwell Bus Garage, which he compared to the Pantheon in Rome. He remarked on its generous form, which plays with compression, those relatively small entrances, and release into that huge cavernous hall. For Self, the design gives space to people who are hemmed in to a tight spot during the day, the bus driver's cab. From the outside, Self said, it resembles a pod of whales. So we've had the dolphins, now we have the pod of whales, but he says they're frozen in mid-arch. And again, I think this photograph is one of my favorites of Stockwell. Now, Self drew an interesting analogy with the post-war settlement and thought of it as a kind of concrete and glass version of the Beveridge Report. It is perhaps, he said, a relic of a society now gone, one that cared about its workers from cradle to grave. Now, Will Self is possibly not a typical man on the Clapham omnibus, the figure of speech conjured to represent the ordinary person, if there is such a thing. Amy Levy, born into a Jewish family in 1861 in Clapham, was not ordinary either. And she published her first poem at the age of 14. She was the first Jewish student at Newnham College, Cambridge, but she left without taking her degree. She loved buses, as we will hear in this next poem, in an extract from Ballad of an Omnibus, published in 1889 from Roli.
Some men to carriages aspire, some on the costly hansoms wait, some seek a fly or on job or hire, some mount the trotting steed, elate. I envy not the rich and great, a wandering minstrel, poor and free. I am contented with my fate, an omnibus suffices me. In winter days of rain and mire, I find within a corner straight the busmen know me and my lyre, from Brompton to the Bull and Gate. When summer comes, I mount in state the topmost summit, whence I see Croesus look up compassionate, an omnibus suffices me.
And there's the omnibus, which is from an open day at Stockwell Bus Garage a few years back. Here we're going to end the presentation. We hope that the past half hour has inspired hope and love. And we'll finish with this Emily Dickinson poem. Yes, it's very well known, but that does not diminish its power.
Sorry about that. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all, and sweetest in the gale is heard. And sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me.
Well, many, many thanks to everyone that joined us in our virtual stroll. I would suggest that if you are in Stockwell, today's the day to take a stroll, or maybe this weekend, for real, and go to these amazing places that are so close to us. All feedback is very welcome, and you can contact us by email. A slide will come up with our email address. And again, very many thanks from us and the Draw Lambeth Collective. Also to mention, this event would not have been possible without Ludlow Thompson's amazing support of our festival. So thank you so much, Ludlow Thompson. We're very grateful for the support you've given us. Right, I think Naomi and Roli,
Hi all, thank you very much.
Did we have another slide with the
I'm not sure we've got the email address on there, but I'll just give it now.
I would put it on the chat for everyone.
Okay, that's a good idea. Yes,
contact us.
Okay.
Thanks
for listening. Enjoy your Saturday.